Thanks for stopping by. If you are new here, my name is Shatoka, and if you're a returning subscriber, thanks for coming back. So today's video is going to be a video that I've been wanting to do for a while now, but I decided to do it. So the inspiration for this video is actually my son. He has just started sewing, well, a couple of months now, and he has questions about certain things, and it is just really inspiring actually watching someone start from the beginning of learning how to put things together and sewing. It has been really cool. So I was like, you know what, I'm gonna go ahead and put together a video of beginner sewing tips or things I've learned along the way that could help you out, or even seasoned sewers. Like sometimes we actually see people do things differently than we may, and you can definitely pick them up. But this is a video that I wanted to do for a while now, because I remember in the beginning when I was first starting out, I was looking for these type of videos. So I was like, you know what, let me go ahead and add a beginner sewing tips video for my subscribers, or for anyone new if they're visiting my channel. So yeah, I just wanted to go ahead and jump right in. So for me, I have been sewing, I will say, consistently since 2011. So I did learn back in high school, but when I learned, I actually went to vocational high school, so we learned on industrial machines. So I really wouldn't say that everything that I know now is from what I learned in high school. I actually picked it back up in 2011, and since then I have been consistently sewing. Sometimes more years it's been more sewing than others, but for sure since 2011 I have been sewing, and I love it. I just honestly could not see my life without creating something, some type of garments, or not only just things that I can wear, doing things from my home like decorative pillows, just different things. But I really love fashion sewing, so that's mainly what I share here on my channel. But yeah, I'm gonna jump right in. The first thing I want to say is don't be afraid to be a beginner. So I often get questions from some people, or just even statements of girls saying, or women saying, I wish I could sew, I wish I knew how to make my own clothing. And I would say you definitely can. Like, as a beginner, you can definitely make things that you can definitely wear out. But again, don't be afraid to be a beginner. No one starts out immediately an expert at whatever it is that they're doing. That's with anything. Like if you're starting a fitness journey, if you are learning how to cook, anything that you do that you are not familiar with, you're going to be a beginner, and you're going to learn along the way. You're going to make mistakes, and that's fine. You have to give yourself some grace, and just know that everything, even if it's a fail, it's not a fail. You're learning, okay, next time I'm going to have to do this instead of that, or you'll learn from it for sure. I know for me in the beginning, there were a lot of mistakes. I wish I could kind of go back sometimes to like try to fix those things, but in frustration, I would just be like, oh, I'm done, and I'll just like chuck away the fabric, which is so wasteful. I wish I hadn't done that, but just being frustrated in the beginning. So I want to say to those who are beginning to sew, or if you only sew from time to time and you're not necessarily a beginner, but you just don't sew as frequently, give yourself grace and don't be afraid to be a beginner. Everyone has to start somewhere. The next thing I want to say is keep it simple. So this means your machines, your tools, even to your projects, keep it simple. In the beginning, because you are learning, you want to start off slow. Again, I'll keep referencing like if you're doing a fitness journey, you're not going to go from 0 to 100. If you do, you're going to be regretting it because you're going to be super sore. So same thing with sewing. If you jump in and do too much too soon, it can be overwhelming, and it can cause you to not want to keep up that habit or that hobby. So I would definitely say start off small. So for me, my beginner sewing machine was like an $89 sewing machine, like I believe it was a Brother that I got on Amazon, and it was not computerized. It had, I think, maybe 10 or 11 stitches, but I really only used it for my straight stitch and my zigzag when I did my knits. But other than that, that's all I needed. I don't even think that machine had a buttonhole, and at the time I wasn't really trying to do anything with buttonholes anyway, but it did have like a zipper foot. So most standard sewing machines now, you'll be able to have like a buttonhole in there, a zipper foot, but don't get anything too fancy or too expensive to start off, because one, you want to make sure that it's something that you actually are going to enjoy and want to keep up. So why invest in a super fancy machine? I think I'm on my maybe 5th machine now, and the one that I have now, I love it. It's a computerized machine. It is the Singer Quantum Stylus, and I love it, and I'm still learning the many things that it can do, but it does so much and I love it tremendously. And I just now got an overlock machine. So before that, to finish my edges, I would just do a zigzag stitch along the edge of my fabrics whenever I was sewing. So for years I did not have an overlock machine, and my son just gifted me one this past February for my birthday, and I love that one as well. But yeah, you don't need it. I would say start off with the basics. Also, start off with basic construction of items as well. I wouldn't jump right out and try to make jeans or a blazer. You can be ambitious, however, you want to avoid doing things too difficult so that it's not discouraging you if things don't come out the way you would like them. So I would say start off small. Maybe start off like with a pair of leggings or a t-shirt or elastic waist shorts or skirt. Just those simple things so that you can get used to your machine, and then build upon that, and then you can grow as far as what you're creating in the future. The next thing I would say is your supplies. So minimal supplies too as well. You need your sewing machine, you need scissors, you want to have paper scissors, and you want to have fabric scissors. You don't want to be using those interchangeably, because you will have your fabric scissors get dull if you try to use them for other things. Some people love doing rotary cutters. I use them sometimes, but for the most part I use scissors. You want to have your pins, a pin cushion, a seam ripper, some rulers, a tape measure, basic things. Don't really worry about extra attachments to your machine in the beginning. I would just say the basic things to put something together. So like I said, your pins, your rulers, your tape measures. I would also say get some clips, because some fabrics it's better to clip instead of pinning. Also, you have different type of pins that you would want to use in different fabrics, so I would say definitely do that. But other than that, you don't need much. If you have an iron already, I would think. So you definitely need an iron, because pressing is so important in sewing. In the beginning, I didn't really see the importance as much, but it is very important. You want to sew a seam, and you want to press the seam. Sew a seam, press the seam. It really will have your garments looking so much better, and you do it along the way so it's not so overwhelming, and you'll definitely notice the difference. The next thing I want to say is basting stitch is your friend. So a basting stitch, if you don't know what that is just the longest stitch in your machine. Usually you use basting stitches for temporary stitches and things, or if you want to gather things, you would use that. I would say use a basting stitch in the beginning, just because if you do have to rip some seams out, which you need a seam ripper too as well, that's one of those things you're definitely going to need, especially as a beginner sewist. And I still use it because I still mess up sometimes too. You're always learning. But whenever you're doing something, especially for the first time, I would always say baste it. So then that way, if you make a mistake, you can easily pull those stitches out instead of having to, go and pull out those stitches that are closer together. It's so much easier. So a basting stitch is going to be your best friend, and keep that seam ripper on hand for sure. So the next thing I want to say is inspect your clothes. So for me, I remember in the beginning turning clothes inside out. In the stores I would do it. Also just clothes in your closet. Turn them inside out. Look how they're constructed, and you've learned so much, and you can start seeing and putting things together as far as when you're doing something, and you can grow from that. In the beginning, I didn't use patterns at all. So this point will segue right into the next one, which is patterns to use or not to use. Guys, if you don't want to use patterns, you don't have to use patterns. For many years, I did not use patterns. I actually just used my own clothing to make other clothes. So when I say inspect your clothing, take your clothing out. If it's something that already fits you well, you basically could just set those clothing items on your fabric and cut around them, adding a seam allowance, and then sew them back together. I did this so much in the beginning of my sewing journey because to me, it was an easy way to make something turn around really quickly because I already knew it fitted. I didn't have to worry about that at all. I would just say in the beginning, just make sure that you're using comparable fabrics. So obviously if I'm making a pair of leggings, I'm not going to put them on cotton fabric because the cotton fabric doesn't stretch. So you want to just make sure if you're duplicating things from your closet that you're using the same type of fabrics so that it can easily translate into something that you made easily. I love doing that, and I still will do that from time to time. I have now since then started making paper patterns based off of things that I already made if I'm not using a store brand pattern, because then that way it's just easier for me to just pull out my paper of like my pencil skirt or my tank top, whatever it is that I am duplicating over and over again. It's just easier for me to pull that out. But yeah, for the longest time I would just literally throw my maxi skirt onto my fabric and cut it out and sew it. It was so quick, and I love doing it like that sometimes because it's just less time consuming. So I would say that. And then also, if you are going to use store patterns, definitely make sure you pay attention to the sizing. So in the beginning, I used to always think that you just grab the pattern size, the same size that you have in your ready to wear clothes, and it's not like that at all. You definitely have to check those measurements. And what's most important is to check the finished garment measurements, because that's going to show you what the measurements of the item is going to be once it's completely sewn up. Because the patterns, like in the Big Four at least, a lot of times they can have like a lot of ease in them. So for me, I look straight to the finished garment measurements instead of the measurements at the top, because then I know, okay, when it's done, it's gonna be this bust of 39. I can fit my measurements in that bust size of 39 when it's finished. Therefore, I'm gonna cut this size. So be mindful of that when you are picking out your pattern sizes. But yeah, I love using patterns now. I use them more so for the pieces. I do follow along with construction instructions sometimes, but a lot of times I just use it for the pieces because I have been sewing for years. But for sure, if you're a beginner, go ahead and read through them. I would suggest that you read through your instructions a couple of times first before you even start to put the pattern together. Also watch videos as well. So that's where I'm going to go to the next point is books, videos. Definitely indulge in all of those because it's going to help you out in your sewing journey. What's so cool now is that we have YouTube, and you can literally just go to YouTube and type in that pattern that you want to do, or even just circle skirt or pencil skirt, put it in YouTube, and there's tons of tutorials out there. Even if it's just learning how to do certain things, zipper installation, buttonhole installation, you can learn so much from the internet now. YouTube was where I always was in the beginning of my sewing journey. Also, this book I have here, this is called The Sewing Book. I actually got this from my local library. This is by Allison Smith, and I'm sure you can find this online, Amazon, or wherever books are sold. But this is my sewing Bible. This book tells you everything you need to know about everything. It literally shows you how to install zippers, buttons, facings, linings. I love this book. I actually checked it out at my local library years ago when I first started picking back sewing up, and I kept renewing it, and then eventually I was like, I'm just gonna buy it. Can I buy it? And I bought it from the library and kept it, and I still reference it to this day. My son uses it because anything that you would want to know, it's in this book. Again, it's called The Sewing Book by Allison Smith, and it tells you about tools and fabrics and just different ways of constructing things, and I just love it. I'll have this book forever for sure. Also, I would say ask questions. So I know for me, I don't mind, and a lot of sewists or seamstress or designers, if they're not too busy, they don't mind answering a question. I know for sure when I get questions, I welcome it because I love when someone is dipping into sewing or picking it up or just creating anything. Like, I love doing things creatively. So when people ask me questions, if I know an answer to something or a different way of doing something, I don't mind at all. I get questions on like my Facebook, my Instagram, and in real life too, just from friends, and I don't mind. So I would say definitely don't back down from asking questions. Most of us, we don't mind at all. The next thing I would say is sew what you like. So what I mean by that is there will be, and you'll see when you're starting your sewing journey, we have communities, we have groups, we have hashtags that we follow, we have pages that dedicated to sewing. Sometimes there will be challenges where everybody's making certain type of things, but sew what you like. So if you only want to make maxi skirts for yourself or sundresses for yourself, do that. Do what you like and things that you're gonna wear. I am trying to start sewing more practical things because a lot of times I do make things that are a little bit more fancy, not formal wear, but like I'm thinking of an event and an event that I'm going to in mind, like, oh, I'm gonna go to this concert. Like I have my Beyonce Renaissance concert outfit that I'm gonna make over the next couple of days. So that's like a special occasion thing. But ultimately too, I want to wear things that I'm going to wear multiple times, not just special occasions. So make things that you love. If you just want to make shorts or rompers or whatever it is that you like, make that stuff. Don't feel like you have to make what's trendy or what everyone else is doing. Like I love to see others make things and get inspirations, but make what you like. And that's what's going to make this hobby fun for you. Hobby, lifestyle, whatever you want to call it. For me, sewing is my happy space. So I love creating things. I love making fabric come to life. I just love going into a fabric store and seeing something and saying, oh my gosh, that would be such a pretty sundress, or I could see that in a pair of wide leg pants. Like I get super excited when I see fabric. So I love creating for that. Whatever your reason for sewing, just make sure it's something that is speaking to you because it is your sewing journey. So I would just say definitely sew what you like. Also, I want to say that sojo. So sojo is like a term that we coined, like mojo is sojo. Know that your sojo is going to come and go. And that's fine. Sometimes I'm just not in a mood. Like, I don't know, like I just don't really feel like creating anything, or sometimes you are not inspired, or it could be the weather. For me, I live in Chicago. I love sewing so much more when it's warmer because I love being out and about and just thinking about the different things, like, oh, I'm gonna make this dress, it's gonna be so nice in the sunshine and flowing in the wind. And I sew more things, I feel, in the spring and summer than I do in the fall and winter. I do love sewing all year round, but yeah, just know that if you're not interested sometimes as much as others times, like that's normal. Like all of us sewers go through it, and then life just happens sometimes. Like life be life, and like it's a thing where you just can't get it in and you don't have time. And so if you don't have the time to make something to where you can finish it over a couple of days, sometimes we get discouraged and be like, well, forget it. I know I don't have time to do this. I have, you know, things coming up for work, or I'm just busy, the family, it's a lot. Just know that it passes and you'll get inspired again. So I would say definitely know that sojo comes and goes. It's so normal. The next thing that I would say is learn your machine. So whatever machine it is that you get, just make sure you learn it, read your manual. Most machines have like online like YouTube pages. So for me, I remember when I first got my quantum stylist, I went to the Singer YouTube page and I looked through all the videos of all the things that my machine does. Now, my machine does quite a lot. There's still some things on my machine that I haven't done, but I know that I have that as a guide if I want to go back and learn some things. But I would say definitely learn your machine so that you can know all that it's, you know, available for you to do. Because like I said, for me, this machine does so much more that I didn't even know until I went to the page and saw. I'm like, okay, I definitely got to expand from what I do on a normal basis. So I would say that. Also, I would say learn fabrics. Learn what fabrics works best for you. Clothes that you have in your closet that are ready to wear, that you love how they feel. Look at those labels and see what those fabrics are. You may want to, you know, sew most of your things in that if you know that really feels good or what's breathable. Learn what fabrics works for you. And also, I would say in the beginning, stay away from those more difficult fabrics, and you'll start to learn as you go. Fabrics that slip a lot, fabrics that are, especially if you don't have like an overlock machine, you can definitely have pinking shears to cut your fabric so that it's not fraying as much. But I would just say definitely learn fabrics, and you'll learn what you like to work with more than others, because there's still some fabrics to this day that I'm like, yeah, I'm not dealing with that. It's too much, it's sliding around too much, or some fabrics don't breathe as much as others. So definitely learn fabrics and learn your machine. In the beginning of your sewing journey, I would also say definitely use unconventional things as well. So for me, in the beginning, I was so excited that I just like went to the fabric store. I was buying all type of fabrics. I wasn't checking around for different prices and what stores were less expensive than others. I was just so excited. I would definitely say take your time, shop around, thrift fabric, use bed sheets, use tablecloths, use anything that you have at your disposal that is a textile you can use to make things. I would also say do trial runs, do muslins. I didn't do that a lot in the beginning, and so I would mess up my good fabric. So I would definitely say do trial runs. You can do them with bed sheets or muslin fabric that's pretty inexpensive. You can get it for a couple bucks a yard. At least testing out something that you would want to make for yourself to make sure there's not any fit issues. That is very important, because I still to this day will do it. Certain patterns sometimes that you're making may run a little bit differently, or you might need to grade in between sizes. You're in between a couple of sizes. So I would definitely say do that. I know it takes time, it's time consuming, and that's pretty much why I didn't used to do it. I would also say keep track of the things that you are creating. I'm so glad that when I started sewing back in 2011, I was documenting, not so much as for YouTube videos, but I did take pictures of things that I made, even things that I didn't even wear out. But I love sometimes looking back at those older pictures and seeing things that I made and seeing how far I've come. Like, there were plenty of fails or plenty of things that I'm like, oh wow, that doesn't look so great, but it does show me how much I've grown, and I love that. So I would say definitely document that, even if it's not for everyone else. Back then I would just share it like on my Facebook page, so I do like have those old pictures that I can pull from. But if it's just you taking pictures on your own for you, or even journaling whatever it is that you're creating, what issues you may have had with constructing it, I definitely am going to start documenting things as well. If I did things differently, what would I do next? Make sure in the beginning you are paying attention to how you lay out things on your fabric. So even if you're not using a store-bought pattern, if you are just cutting around clothing, so for instance, if I'm making a maxi skirt and it's out of a stretch knit fabric, I'm gonna make sure that I have my fabric folded and along the lines of where it stretches. So you're gonna take your fabric and stretch it, see if it's stretching horizontal or vertical, because I remember making things in the beginning and having it laid out the wrong way, and then I can't pull it up because it's not stretching in the correct way. So make sure you are laying it out. On store-bought patterns, they will give you layout guides on how best to lay out your pattern pieces, and they usually do it so that you can use the best layout for your fabric. But sometimes you will have to kind of cheat or move things around, but just make sure that you pay attention to your grain lines and how things stretch. You want to make sure that you're cutting them out the right way so that they will fit, especially if it's something that needs to be stretching over you. Also, I would say if you're going to be using knit fabrics and you don't have an overlock machine, I would say use a zigzag stitch. In the beginning, I used to just do straight stitch on everything, and some things it wouldn't be an issue on your more stable knits like your double knits, but on like the spandexes and things like that that were really stretchy and really fitted to my body, I remember putting them on and like hearing the stitches pop. So for sure you want to use a zigzag stitch on that if you don't have an overlock machine, so that it will have the ease when you put it over your body to be able to stretch. So I would say use a zigzag stitch. Most basic sewing machines have it. I had a beginner sewing brother machine and it had it, and you can definitely lengthen the stitches or tighten them up if you want, but I would definitely say use a zigzag stitch. So for knits, a zigzag stitch are gonna be your best friend. Also, don't be afraid of knits. Like, I know a lot of time new sewists stick to more stable fabrics, but for me, I loved sewing with knits in the beginning of my sewing journey, because for me the fit issues weren't as much with a knit item. If I cut it a little bit too small, it stretched. It didn't matter. So I love jumping in on knits. For me, that was the beginning, and I still love sewing with knits. I have an overlock machine now, and it's so much easier to do those like leggings and skirts and things like that just all up on the overlock machine. It's perfect, but don't be afraid of using knit fabrics. It's so forgiving. A lot of sewists don't have designated sewing spaces, and so you want to just make the best of wherever you are. So for me, I don't have a cutting table. I do have a dining room table that I will cut on sometime, but I'm tall, so bending over a lot of times on that table is not really good on my back. So a lot of times I just cut on the floor. I have knee pads though, because I have like laminate floors. So yeah, cut on the floor if you need to. Get you some knee pads or put a pillow down, cut around on the floor. But yeah, you will just get it in where you can. Like I said, most of us don't have designated sewing spaces, so we will put things down as needed and cut them out. So for me, most of the time it's in my living room on the floor. I'm laying everything out, cutting it out, and then going over to my sewing area, which now I do have like a designated sewing desk that I have both of my machines on that I sew on. But for many, many years, I sewed right on my dining room table, and I would just move things over and then put everything up when I was done. So yeah, like get it in where you can, but don't let that discourage you because you don't have, you know, a designated spot for you to create. Because in the beginning, you're trying to figure out if there's something you want to keep up with in the meantime, and then eventually, if it is something that grows and it's a part of your normal daily life, you can then begin to carve out a more permanent space for you to create. In summary, on this video, I just really wanted to encourage you to do what's best for you. So just like I said, if you're not wanting to sew things that other people are sewing or what's trending, that's fine. Do what's best for you. In your sewing journey, it's going to be exactly that, your sewing journey. So again, if you just want to make maxi skirts in your sewing journey, that's fine. If you just want to do like thrift flips, that's fine. If you want to, you know, start off, I personally would say start off basic, but if you want to start off with something more difficult and try to learn from that, then do that. So I just wanted to share with you guys just a few tips that I hope that will help you out in your sewing journey. And again, I would say keep it up. It's such a fun hobby. I love just making something come to life, and I love getting compliments of like, oh my gosh, did you make that? In like the good way of like, wow, that looks like something like from the store. I just absolutely love that. And don't get discouraged. You will have mess ups. It's all a part of the learning process, and just definitely keep it up. If you guys have any questions, I would say leave them in the comment section. Also, sewists, if you are watching this video as well and you have any tips for anyone who's beginning a sewing journey, or just any sewist, like I'm still learning things. So if you guys have things that you want to leave in the comment section for anyone who would be looking there, please do drop them down below. I'm sure they would appreciate it. So if you like this video, go ahead and hit the like button. Also, subscribe if you're not subscribed and you love sewing content, and click the notification bell so you'll be alerted when I upload a new video. So until next time, bye.